All right, shalom to the hopeful elect. This is Brother Sakallah coming back with another lesson through the Spirit of the Most High Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Before I get started with my lesson, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Shem Yahushai, by Hashem Rakakwadash, Kol Halo Yamla, Allah Hayanawa Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai. All praises to our power, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, the God or the power of the heavens and the earth, and the God of the Israelites. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and also you Confucian faith brothers and sisters. You know, you are the chosen people of the Most High Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Double honors also be to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, which are the true teachers of Israel today. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect. Habayav Madawadah, the house of David, the 144,000 laboring to make their calling of election sure. To you I say shalom, and last but not least, to the brothers and sisters, the listeners who also listen and believe on Yahweh Shem Yahushai, to you I say shalom as well. So, as you can see, the title of this article is dated June the 8th, 2020, and the title is from Yahoo Finance, A Crash in the Dollar is Coming. So that's the premise of the lesson. I'm going to jump right into it, and I'm going to support it with precepts. Hopefully it's edifying, to the hopeful elect. So this lesson is going to be about the crash of the dollar, the impending crash of the dollar, the imminent crash of the dollar. This has been spoken about for years. And now we're coming into the time where it's, fastly approaching, coming into fruition, which is the actual crash of the dollar, which meaning before there was a stock market crash in the 1920s. From 1929 to 1939, when you look into it, it speaks about the first Great Depression, which was the first great crash, here in America. And that crash was highlighted by heavy unemployment, which that's what's going on now. Lowered wages, people living below the poverty line, not making a living wage, a wage that was able to allow people to continue, to be able to live, and live at a decent rate. People are living well below the poverty line, and heavy proliferation of debt. And the scriptures speak about that in the book of Habakkuk, the thick clay. And that's the same thing that's repeating itself now, because those are the same issues, that's within this system of commerce and capitalism that is rendering this place, to this crash that's coming. So there's a crash coming, and whether you believe that or not, or you believe that there may be what do people call it? People like to call it the fact of that's conspiracy theory, etc. Well, it's not, because it's prophesied in the Bible. Not only is it prophesied in the Bible, here goes some information just being put out straight to the point. There's plenty of economists and people that deal with that sort of thing that have spoken about that as well. But most importantly, the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, said this is going to happen. So you can listen to Peter Schiff or Ron Paul, or these different social media outlets, the X22 report, etc. Different alternative news. This has been spoken about, so this is not something that's new. The crash of the dollar is inevitable, and it's imminent, meaning that it's upon us. It says, Bloomberg opinion, the era of the U.S. dollar's exorbitant privilege as the world's primary reserve currency is coming to an end. The French finance minister, Valéry Giscard, coined that phrase in the 1960s, largely out of frustration, bemoaning a U.S. that drew freely on the rest of the world to support its overextended standard of living. See, the U.S. has an overextended standard of living, which meaning a standard of living that far outpaces the rest of the world, in various parts of the world, the so-called industrialized world. Because you'll go into other countries and you'll see people here in the U.S. and other countries spending 2 and 3 times more just for for your common basic things like rent and food and the cost of utilities. So, this is an overextended standard of living, meaning a standard of living that is just far past what it should take for a natural citizen to be able to actually live. It says for almost 60 years, the world complained but did nothing about it. Those days are over. Already stressed by the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, U.S. living standards are about to be squeezed as never before. And people are seeing that standard of living change because you have almost 50 million people. Slovakia. You have almost 50 million people who are out of work. So that standard of living is being stressed because you have 50 million people that's out of work. And then you have many businesses that still haven't opened up, and some have opened and not brought back the full staff. Then you have protests and uprisings, etc. So the standards of living is slowly changing. It says U.S. standards of living are about to be squeezed as never before. At the same time, the world is having serious doubts about the once widely accepted presumption of American exceptionalism. That's the idea that America is that shining city on the hill and it's above all nations. Well, now that's showing to be not true because of the way of living here, because of the massive debt, the debt being so much that it could never be paid off, ever. So the idea that there's American exceptionalism, meaning America is just greater than the other nations. This nation was founded by the idea of manifest destiny, meaning Esau believing that it was his destiny to rule and to put the children of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, the 12 tribes, into slavery. But that was only for punishment of the tribes. That wasn't the ultimate end game or destiny of the tribes, to be in a perpetual state of slavery. Continuing on, it says, currency set the equilibrium between these two forces, domestic economic fundamentals and foreign perceptions of a nation's strength or weakness. The balance is shifting, and a crash in the dollar could be well in the offing. So that the crash of the dollar is upon us. And that's the point I wanted to get to out of this article, is that the ideal of American exceptionalism, etc., those days are over, because the truth of the matter is the nations are starting to see America, the way that it really is, and not from some image that's been projected, over time, of this place that that everybody wanted to come to and come and make business here and live here, and that this was a very wealthy place. But now they're seeing that this nation is falling. That's why in Revelation, the 18th chapter, we'll get it here in a second, it says that Babylon is falling. It's falling. That great city, because to the nations it was that great shining city on the hill. But now, through the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, we see that Babylon is falling. So my first precept I'm gonna get, it's gonna be in the book of let's go to the book. Go to the book of Zephaniah. So this is the book of Zephaniah, the first chapter. Zephaniah 1 and verse 10. So this is Zephaniah 1 and 10. And it reads, and it shall come to pass in that day, this is the time, that the Lord, has set aside, which is the coming of Hamashiach Yahushua, which is the time of Jacob's trouble fastly approaching. So the time of Jacob's trouble, you're going to see a full, all-out crash of the economy. Just like the first Great Depression. You're going to see that again. That's predicted and prophesied, Salakia, in the Bible. So this is prophecy, meaning this was already foretold before. So Zephaniah 1 and 10, and it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord Yahweh, that there shall be the noise of a cry from the fish gate. And that fish gate is getting into the marketplace, the place of commerce and trade, which would be today, that would be known as, the stock market. The stock market. the S&P 500, the futures market, etc. So that would be known as the Dow Jones Industrial. So that would be, referring directly to international trade and commerce between the nations. So there will be, it says, a noise of a cry from the fish gate, and a howling from the second, and a great crashing from the hills. The hills are the nations. There's going to be a great crashing, it says, from the hills. So there's a saying that when America cough, the world gets a cold, meaning that America's the forefront, of economics and power in the world. And that's so because that's why this place is called Babylon the Great. So it says that there will be a great cry from the fish gate. And that great cry is found right here in the book of Revelation real quick. Let me get a quick precept to support that. It's Revelation 18 because it speaks about this great crash that's upon us. That's why this is being written about in news articles and talked about on TV. Not just alternative TV, on regular news. You hear more and more about this. So this is Revelation 18. The start of this chapter, speaks about how Babylon has fallen. And it goes into how Babylon was going to fall, showing you that there's going to be a collapse. Revelation 18 and 9. And the kings of the earth, those would be your presidents, your prime ministers, And in some places they actually still have kings, the king and queen of England, etc. The Saudi kings, in the land of Persia, etc. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication, meaning they've had to do business, trade with Babylon. And this chapter goes into that, and live deliciously because through America's system of government, which is international trade and capitalism, this commerce and capitalism that America's pushed onto the world is made all the worlds fornicate with America, which is do business, whether they want to or they don't, or they'll get sanctioned if they try to go against the ways of Babylon. That's why it says they fornicated with her. It says and live deliciously because they made a lot of money through the way that America does business. China, the Philippines, Russia, all the nations, Brazil, all throughout Africa, South Africa, etc. All the nations of the world in one way, shape, or another. Japan, etc. So it says they live deliciously with her, with Babylon, shall bewail her. Why are they going to bewail her? And lament for her. See? That's that great cry that's going to come from a fish gate. When they shall see the smoke of a burning, because Babylon's ultimately going to be destroyed. Verse 10, standing afar off for the fear of her torment. So the nations are going to be in great fear when they see this place fall, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for 1 hour thy judgment has come. So it's only going to take, the Most High 1 hour for this place to be completely destroyed. And here goes the point, verse 11, Revelation 18:11, and the merchants of the earth, which these are the people who do business, international trade. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her. So the merchants of the earth, the people that do business, the sea merchants, which is going to be these nations. They're the representatives of these nations that do trade and business. So it says, the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her. For no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. So there ain't going to be no more selling going on of goods, because this place is going to crash, which is going to, throw a tailspin into the whole way that business is being done. People are going to start scrambling. The nations are going to start scrambling. And if you read on in this chapter, it goes into how that's going to look. So there's going to be a crash of the economic system of America. So like the crash before, or the Great Depression, that lasted 10 years. See, when this crash comes, it's going to usher in and push forth the mark of the beast. That's going to be the solution, thus said the Holy Scriptures. So there's going to be a crash of this economic system here in America. And my next precept showing that is in the book of Ecclesiastes, Ecclesiastes 12, starting at verse 3, and it reads, in that day when the keepers of the house, speaking of the same thing, the keepers of the house are those who do the business people, the stock markets all around the world. The keepers of the house shall tremble. They're going to tremble. The same reason why they were going to tremble, as it said before, in the book of Zephaniah, and in the book of Revelation. There's not going to be anything that's going to be sold anymore because it's going to be a crash of the economic system. which is going to bring forth nothing but calamity, chaos in the world, and is going to fuel Jacob's trouble. In that day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease, that's work. So this is going to cause a lot of people not to have work no more, because they are few. So it's going to be very, very, very minimum things to be done. And those that look out the windows be dark, and see the perspective of life is going to change, where when people see the world as it really is, it's going to be darkened. So that's going to be the onset of the time of Jacob's trouble, because when people can't, have the luxuries they're used to, and have the necessities, the raw necessities, the raw materials, they're going to go out and take matters into their own hands, which is going to cause nothing but, calamity, death, and destruction in the streets, which is going to bring on rioting, more rioting, looting on another level, killing, murder, and it's going to bring on martial law. And that's what's going to turn America in various parts of the world into a police state. Verse 4, Ecclesiastes 12:4, and the doors shall be shut in the streets. So we saw that with COVID-19, but ultimately the doors are going to be shut in the streets, meaning people are not going to be able to trade no more. There's not going to be businesses open. There's not going to be jobs to be had. There's going to be long lines of people trying to line up to get something to eat. And you might have 75, 80% of people in line not get nothing, not eat that day. So this is the time the Lord said was going to come. And the doors shall be shut in the streets. I mean, none of the businesses are going to be open when the sound of grinding is low, because there's not going to be no more work. The hustle and bustle of city life is going to be gone. It says, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and the daughters of music shall be brought low. So this is the time of Jacob's trouble. Jeremiah 30:7, this is going to be the time when the daughters of music, which is another name for you Israelites, you're going to be brought low. It's going to affect you worse and more than anybody, first and foremost, because you are the lowest of the low. You don't have an abundance of resources. You are the ones that's most heavily, dependent upon oppression. You believe and trust in oppression. So this is going to lead, to the time of Jacob's trouble. So this crash, as you see, is being spoken about now in news more readily, more regularly, is because it's so. There's a great crash that's coming. So continuing on with that, I'm going to go to the book of Isaiah. I'm going to go to Isaiah, the 19th chapter. So this is Isaiah 19, starting at verse 14. And it reads, the Lord Yahweh hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof. So the reason why this place got to go is because it's a perverse place. Babylon is a very backward, twisted place. So the Most High swore by himself that he was going to destroy this place. So it says the Lord hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, because this place is backward and ain't a righteous place. So that perverse spirit that's in the midst of Babylon is one of the main reasons why he has to destroy it, because it's polluted, as it says in Micah 2:10. Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. It is polluted. It will destroy you, even with the sword destruction. So continuing on, Isaiah 19:14, the Lord Yahweh hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man staggereth in his vomit. So that's how this place is. This place is like a drunken man staggering in his vomit. So it says, the Lord hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof. And when you go into that word perverse, let's see if I can get it real quick. That word perverse goes into being distorted. This place is distorted. So synonyms is twisted, perverted, immoral, wicked, base, sick. This is a sick place. This is a base. This is the land of the base man, which is the caveman, which is Esau, the so-called white man. So this place is the land of the base, the sick, the twisted, the perverted. That's why you have pedophiles and, homosexuals, transgenders all around. It says immoral, wrong, incorrect, illogical, irrational, awkward, contrary. So this is a distorted, contrary, immoral, wicked, perverted, twisted, sick place. So that's why the Most High is going to destroy this place. So continuing on, Isaiah 19 and verse 15. And it reads, neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which the head or the tail or the branch or the rush may do. And the head is speaking about those who have the most, the high level people with the big time corporate Fortune 500 company jobs. The tail is those that do your natural labor and jobs. The branch or rush, it says may do, the least to the greatest. From the least to the greatest, there ain't going to be no work in this place. Now, Egypt is symbolic, once again, when you read Exodus, the 20th chapter, to slavery, to bondage. That word Egypt, you go back to Exodus 20, it speaks about bondage. So it says there won't be no work here in bondage. And it's that new Egypt the Lord spoke about. Because at the time of Isaiah, we had been long passed out of Egypt. So this was the prophecy for the time to come now. So this is the times that we're coming into. We're coming into times where this place is about to fall. Babylon, mystery Babylon the Great is about to fall, which is America. And it's being identified. And the wicked have been identified. So I got another precept just showing you when it said that Egypt shall do. I'm going to get a quick precept in the spirit. When you go to, let me find it real quick. When you go to Revelation, the 11th chapter, shows you why this place is called Egypt. It's also known as spiritual Sodom, and many other names. Babylon the Great, because of confusion. It's the land of confusion. So Revelation, when you go to Revelation real quick, get a quick precept before I close out. Revelation 11 and 8. This is why it says there won't be no work for Egypt. Revelation 11 and 8, and it reads, and their dead bodies, speaking of our people, being in a dead state, not being, known as the people of the Most High and not following the law, statutes, and commandments. Scriptures tell us to keep the commandments and live. So when we are not keeping the commandments, we're known as dead. So this is how we were seen. Revelation 11 and 8, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city. Well, we already heard the precept showing that this great city, Babylon, that's who the great city is Babylon. Shall lie in the street of the great city, which is Babylon, which spiritually, so Babylon is spiritually called Sodom, the land of the Sodomites in Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified, his image, his people, and the knowledge of the truth. So it says in Babylon, this will be where our people will be in Babylon, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. Egypt, because this is the land of our captivity. We were brought over here to serve captivity. In Sodom, because it's the land of Sodomites. And to prove that it's the land of Sodomites, I got some stats here. If you look up how many people identify as transgenders, that's people who have changed their gender or going through the process of augmenting or altering their gender. That amount is 1.4 million people in America. 1.4 million people. So 0.5% of the population, has augmented and changed their body to be that of another gender, or have went through what they call transitioning of some sort. Now, those numbers aren't too eye-popping. Then when you go to, and you can look this up, all this information is you can go to Google, but it's on factsandtrends.net 2019. So this is as of 2019. These are the stats. It says a recent Gallup survey found that average American believes 23% of the population identifies as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. That's the LGBTQ community. 23%. That's almost 1 out of every 4 people identify with being lesbian, gay, transgender, queer, etc., etc. That long line of damn letters that go with the the sodomite community. That's what it is, the sodomite community. So that shows that this place is Sodom in Egypt, because we were brought here as slaves and we're still slaves. You got people now working 2 and 3 jobs just to survive, doing what you call gigs, because the natural jobs are no longer around no more. Those regular career jobs that people used to have, working at big time companies and factories that employ tens of thousands of people, those have dwindled. Those have been cut, by 2/3, since the 60s and 70s. So that shows you, This land is the land, of Sodom and Gomorrah and Babylon, the land of confusion. And the Most High is coming to close the casket on Babylon. So with that, I hope that was edifying to the hopeful elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakak Badash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, the true teachers of Israel today. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, the 144,000, the house of David. Habayath Madawadah, say Shalom.